Hello, everyone, and welcome to Indie Game Arcade, a podcast all about indie games. In this episode, we are talking about Ruffy and the Riverside. My name is Chris.
I'm Joseph.
And it's going to be a little bit of a different type of episode today. We did talk about that a little bit towards last week, the end of last week's episode. So this week we have an interview with Patrick from Zockrates Laboratories, who is the main dev behind Ruffy and the Riverside. So we're going to get into that in just a minute, but first let me give you a little bit of that info. So Ruffy and the Riverside is going to be released this year, either end of quarter one, beginning quarter two, developed and published by Zockrates Laboratory. And for a quick description, Ruffy and the Riverside is an action-adventure platformer that combines hand-drawn 2D art with 3D environments. Set in the vibrant world of Riverside, players embark on a quest as Ruffy, the Chosen One, to thwart the villainous Grohl from destroying the world core and plunging Riverside into chaos. Utilizing the unique swap mechanic to copy and paste textures, transform the game world to solve puzzles and overcome challenges. First of all, the big interesting thing of this game is that swap mechanic. It is probably one of the most innovative gameplay mechanics I've seen in a game, especially a platformer, in a very, very long time. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. It's got such an interesting feel to it that admittedly took a second for me to get used to, but not so long that it was I don't know what I'm doing. It was just getting the feeling of what can I absorb and what can I then swap that with. It was once you understand that, and then especially once you understand the multi-swapping, that's where it's okay, now I get it. The first thing I ran across was, and maybe your mileage may vary depending on where you go, but it was a waterfall, but it was blocked off by all of these stone bricks. But within that set of bricks was a small wooden box. And so I was okay, I think I need to do something with that box, that wooden box. And so I went up and I tried to break it and stuff. And you can break it because you can do a little punch or something or a slap or whatever it is. And so I broke that and I was okay, well, how do I get up there? But then I realized oh wait, I can transform all of those other bricks too. So then I had to go find, since I had already broken that box, I didn't have anything to use. So I went and I went and I looked at I think a tree or something. And then I absorbed that. I changed all those stone bricks into boxes with the wood and then broke all of them. I was oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's such a cool way that you can really play it. There's some things that you have to do in very specific ways, but aside from that, you can kind of choose your own methods of how you solve these puzzles. And I found that really intriguing.
It's so interesting. So to really describe this as basically you get a target with one, if we're talking controller, you target with RB to select a texture somewhere in the world that copies to your character for in almost in a temporary inventory. It's only there for so many seconds. Then you can use right trigger to paste that texture over something else. So you can turn a wooden box into a metal box, or you can turn a waterfall into a big thing of vines. Or there's this one puzzle that I worked out in, I think it was the 3-star door. When you go through there's that little bit of ocean. There's those stacks of those, they look like circular stones. And I couldn't figure out how to get up there and get the star that was up there. But I figured out turning a few of those to wood and then turning the ocean to lava burned some of those so that they sank down. And then I was able to, platform up there. And just it's things like that are so clever. It's mind boggling. And in this game too, there's tons of stuff to collect. There's letters, there's butterflies, there's these fuzzy little dudes. There's so many things. I don't know, did you do the hay ball mini game thing?
So I didn't go into any of the levels at all.
Okay.
I was outside the entire time and still occupied. I would think I played for about an hour and a half, just outside of the levels, going around the town, solving all the puzzles around there that I could. And one of the one of the really funny things was the dialogue in some spots, because I don't know if you ever hit this spot, but okay, so there's these areas where in a very like Mario Odyssey kind of way, you can go from your 3D running around to a 2D plane by going through these little warps. And there's this one spot where the star is blocked off by this giant like dude who was just like punching around in the air, so you couldn't get past him on the 2D plane.
The grimy tree.
Yeah, the grimy tree. And like the dialogue that I'm talking about was this one, I don't know, mole or something that was beside him. Not beside him, but it was like outside. Bird. Yeah, the bird. And she's just like, I don't care. I don't remember the dialogue exactly, but it's something like, I think that this tree deserves to be burnt or something, like just needs to burn or just like basically be like murdered. And that just made me laugh, just how this little bird was just so viciously against this evil tree. And the reason I even brought that up is because you mentioned the lava. And the way to get past that tree was turn the water that is sitting in on this 2D plane into lava, which will then burn the tree down. So you get those little clues, like the bird essentially was the clue of like, oh, I need to burn this tree because this bird hates it. And that is how you got the star. And so I just found the dialogue very comical in that sense, but also informative, which is, of course, you know, how you would progress in something like this. There's also little puzzles you run across, like riddles,
There's
rather.
So many.
That was like the one I ran across was like something about there's 8 strangers who all wanted to look the same except for one of them didn't want to. And it's like, okay, interesting. How do I solve this? And the only thing you could do is like change these 8 tiles into the like different shapes. And so it's like, okay, trying to work your way around things like that, I just thought was really interesting. And the fact that there's just all these different ways to go about getting these stars. And it sounds like, you know, obviously so many more mini game types that I didn't even get to experience. And of course, like you didn't even get to experience because we only played the demo aspect of it. And it's very clearly marked too, where you're not able to go. It's like there's like a big circle around the area I was in. It's like demo, and like you could see through it, but you could not go past it. So it's like, okay, well, all right, I know where my cutoff is. But even then, like I think you said you can still get up to 16 stars or something in the demo alone.
13 was the max that I got.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if you can get beyond that.
Okay, I only got 6 of them in the time that I was playing, but I still was like actively doing something the entire time. So I think the demo is very sufficient to give you a good idea of whether or not you're going to like this game. And I'd be surprised if you didn't, if you were a fan of anything like Banjo-Kazooie or even the Paper Mario games just visually. There was actually, did you run across a little cave that had like
the hidden...
thing that was like Banjo was here. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I do ask Patrick about that in the interview as well.
Oh, nice.
So he definitely had some things to say about it, which is great.
That's cool.
It's very obvious there was some big influence on that. And, you know, let's get into that interview too. Let's go ahead and here you go. Here is Patrick from Zockrates Labs, the creator and developer of Ruffy and the Riverside.
Power up!
First of all, just thank you so much, Patrick, for joining me. I'm really excited to talk about Ruffy and the Riverside.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for having me. Really nice to have met you and to now be your host, to your guest, I should say.
Hey, you can, if you want to join and guest host at some point, you totally can. That'd be totally fine.
If I find the time, you see, that's the precious resource right now. There's so many things going on, and but that would be lovely.
Yeah, I totally understand. So I wanted to bring you on specifically to talk about the game that's coming up. I'm very excited for it. I've played the demo twice now, and then also going to ask a little bit about the development of the game as well and sort of what that journey was like. So, Patrick, you are the forefront of Zockrates Laboratories. Can you tell me a little bit, sort of like what kind of started you down the path to game development?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we started doing video game art long before we even decided to do a game. We were just a bunch of guys that made video game paintings, video game sculptures, like little robots. Then I did a lot of animations, like filming me playing basketball and then having overlays with Mario coins, and then it looks like I was collecting Mario coins during playing basketball and stuff. So that's how we started with, like, we really adore video games, and that's why we made video game art, because we thought this is a topic that doesn't appear in arts, but it's so worth, and it's such a cosmos, we have to explore it. And that went on for about 15 years, so very, very long. Then I wrote a book on video games, and I did some art shows on video games. I did the art show Printing Miiverse. If you might remember, on the Wii U gamepad, you could do little doodles, black and white doodles.
Yeah.
And so many creative art styles emerged from that simple tool. And when I saw that, I did an art show called Printing Miiverse, because we printed 10,000 of those drawings and hang it into a gallery and stuff. So all this video game work was centered around games, but we didn't have a game. So that was the start of it, that we said, hey, now we're doing everything. The only thing missing is a game.
So it kind of seems sort of like a natural evolution there from that point.
Yeah, it was the last piece. And we thought we could do it very fast, maybe in a year, but turned out it was 7 years then.
Funny how time kind of flies like that, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the game expanded a lot. First it was a walking simulator. You just were walking alongside a riverside. What's the name was, Riverside.
Oh, okay.
You were walking alongside this river, and the whole landscape was just white, and the river was a hand drawing. And you have to overcome obstacles, and that was it. And then when I went through the artworks for this project, Riverside, I didn't know, hey, this drawing here, is this a lava fall? Is this a waterfall? What is it? And then I thought, hey, that's a great game idea. It could be both. You could swap it.
That's incredible.
Yeah, because you see, from the drawings, a black and white drawing could be anything. And then, let's swap it. And that's how it kicked off with all the swapping stuff.
So that was the question I was really interested in, is kind of like what came first within the game. Was it the idea of sort of Ruffy, or was it the swap mechanic? It sort of sounds like it was the swap mechanic that came first. And I really want to emphasize how much I enjoy the swap mechanic, because it is specifically something I have not seen utilized in a game before. So it's such a fresh idea. And when I first saw the gameplay trailers and read about the idea for it, I was thinking in my head, that's really interesting. It seems like it could be complicated. Playing the demo, it is very, very fluid. I kind of wonder, like, how many iterations of this mechanic did it take to kind of get things just right?
Oh, Chris, a lot. I mean, I can tell you how we started. It was, you had a wand in your hand, your first person walking simulator with that wand. And then you could scan all kind of textures, and they went into an inventory. You could apply it going through your inventory and then apply it. And it was very slow because you always had that inventory. That was the first problem. And the second problem was, you had a ton of textures, so you didn't know which one applies now. And the third problem was, by collecting all those textures, you were overpowered within 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
And to solve all that, we just said, hey, let's do it like copy and paste. So you grab one texture, and then you have one texture. And you don't need inventory at all, because the environment is the inventory. You directly grab it from the environment and throw it back into the environment. That was a huge jump for the whole gameplay.
How far into development were you when you kind of came to that decision of getting rid of the inventory and really just utilizing the environment around you?
About a year. So it was still at the time that we it was still a first-person walking simulator. We didn't even have Ruffy. Ruffy was an enemy at first. It was a small.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was a small bear that looked kind of crazy, and he ran at you from the forest, and you had to all kinds of stuff how to defeat him. Like if he runs through water, you had to strike a lightning to the water, so the water gets electrified, and then he got electroshocks and stuff. So it was Ruffy was the first enemy we had, basically the first character at all. And
Right.
yeah.
That's so interesting. So then, did you have a different idea for a protagonist than before you ended up taking Ruffy as the kind of the bad guy and using him as the protagonist?
Yeah, I know it would be cool if we had alternatives, but we hadn't. We just went with the first one we saw, and that was this crazy bear running from the woods onto you.
That kind of answers another question I was thinking of. Was Ruffy always a bear?
Yeah, he is a bear because we have to call it what animal is it, but it's not really important for us. And over the time, many people gave their guess what he is. Like he's an Evok, or he's one said he's a groundhog. And I like the idea. Why shouldn't he be a groundhog? I mean, I like groundhogs, so he could be anything, but. The first thing he really had to be is very energetic, and I wanted him to move his fingers all the time and be very active, and yeah, that's what he is. So yeah, sure, he's a bear, but on the other side, he can watch TV. You will see it later in the game. He can drive around, and he can do skateboarding and all that modern stuff. So no bear is doing it. So he's not a normal bear.
Something that you brought up about his fingers. So Rusty has this resting animation where he's doing that movement with his fingers, like he's almost kind of like constantly snapping his fingers. Is there a story behind the idea for that as sort of being his default?
Actually, yes. And he had some more movements, that chill greeting the surface do, like your little finger and the thumb stretched away. Mm-hmm. In the first animation, he was doing this all the time, and with the other hand, he was pointing at you. So it was really directed to the camera. And I came to this animation because when we started doing this video game, there's another company here in our town of Nuremberg. They are doing video games as well. And those were very hip guys, very funky dudes. They had the coolest slang and everything, And they were so impressive to me that I said, hey, this person, this Ruffy guy here, he has to be as cool as those video game developers. And that's why, hey, he will do the things with his hand all the time. So it's basically, another indie game company inspired us to make Ruffy move that in this very funky way.
I love that. Speaking of funky, so there are some music tracks in this game, specifically like towards the very beginning when you're getting sort of that title screen, that sort of have a little bit of that funk type rhythm to it. It was so good, and it got me just so excited to get into this game and play it. It gave me a little bit of that Toe Jam and Earl kind of feel to it, like going back to like the 90s, 2000s and stuff. What was it like creating that music for the game?
It was a long process, but this track was right there from the beginning. So this was one of the first tracks we did, and it just felt right because the game was very rough. I mean, we didn't have the time to polish Ruffy at the start. So this is already the third version of Ruffy now. But back then, he had just running and one idle, and he was drawn on paper. And so this was really rough. And so we made this really rough music to it. And we always had the feeling we want to be different. And of course, you cannot just say, now I am different. But we thought, hey, this is not a typical video game track, so that should be okay, because this is nowhere to be found. And so, hey, let's go with it. I mean, you take what you have, that's all we had. And so we took it, and all we could was hand drawings. So we started with a hand-drawn game. Mm-hmm. So to get something started, you cannot have a learning of 3 years in advance. So sometimes it's okay to just start with what you can, and that was we could.
With all the artwork, so it's all very 2D hand-drawn style, which I think is gorgeous. I love the character design of this game. I think that is one of like the big highlights for me as someone that is like a huge animation fan. But with Ruffy and a lot of the NPCs all being sort of these 2D hand-drawn figures, but existing within a 3D world, was that always the vision for the game?
This kind of evolved as well. So we wanted a 3D world. So that was set from the beginning. And we had this walking simulator, and we didn't want to step back from that, from the 3D world, because we thought it was such an amazing thing to have hand drawings in a 3D world, like the texture of the river. That just looked magic. It is this clean, geometrical 3D world, like a technological artifact, and then you have this very basic hand drawing in it. That was the thing we wanted to keep. And when we decided now we are going to a third-person game, it was clear, okay, so we will have to draw him from 8 sides. And so that's what we just had to fulfill them. So yeah, it wasn't the concept from the start, but it appeared to us that it had to go on like this.
Something else about the game too, it feels and you know, I don't want to put like words in your mouth or anything, but to me it feels very influenced by a very specific era of gaming that is very near and dear to my heart, which is kind of like the late 90s, early 2000s, Nintendo 64, PlayStation, Dreamcast kind of era of gaming. Was there some inspiration from that time frame?
Yeah, the whole time frame.
Okay, perfect.
I mean, we grew up in this era, and it has seen the most amazing games from my perspective. And also, if you came from the Super Nintendo to the N64, or let's say you first see a Sega Saturn game or a PlayStation 1 game, it was just such a big leap. And it was a new kind of gaming. And then it evolved to PlayStation 2 and so on. But it has seen such great games that this just left a mark in our, what we think is a good video game. And we never wanted to make a retro game, really, never. Anybody here said, hey, let's make it look old. No, This was just how it evolved, because this is the way we like video games.
What games from that era specifically, not that influenced Ruffy, but that left a very specific like mark on you?
Okay, I mean, you wouldn't guess, but it's of course Zelda Ocarina of Time. And
okay,
yeah,
all right.
That's such an amazing game. I mean, it was before the internet was a thing. So when we went downtown on a Saturday evening and you met your friends in a bar, then you talked about Zelda Ocarina of Time. Okay, where are you right now? I'm in the stomach of a whale. Oh, really? There's a whale? Yeah, there's a whale. I'm in a desert. Hey, and I traveled through time. And there were all these amazing stories. And you couldn't just go to YouTube and watch it all. And yeah, it was just such a promise of exploration. So this really left a mark. And then all the games from Rare, like Diddy Kong Racing, the soundtrack, Banjo-Kazooie, the goofiness, and Crash Bandicoot, straightforward action. All this, I mean, that was what we really liked.
I loved Banjo-Kazooie. That is probably one of my favorite games from that entire era. Like, I can't help but feel a definite connection there playing Ruffy. I think especially noticeable with Ruffy and with Pip specifically in that sort of relationship. Was that something that was kind of intentional from your side?
We just needed Ruffy to fly. And yeah,
sure.
And we could have said, yeah, he's got a cape or something, but we thought it was more funny if he had a companion. I mean, of course, then you think, hey, that's like Banjo-Kazooie, or that's like Conker, and I don't know, but it's more like a coincidence. And why not have a buddy?
Yeah. And I know that there's a very specific spot. I won't spoil anything for anybody.
In the demo, the secret room.
Yes, there's a secret room in there that will have a nod to a few of the things that we've been talking about, which is great. That was such a fun little tidbit to find. Just got me really excited, especially more excited to have this conversation as well.
Yeah, that's the nice things you can do in demos, right? I mean, like just one room and then put on the wall all the stuff you like.
Is there other like really hidden stuff within the greater game that you would expect that some players won't find unless they really, really kind of explore?
Not so much. I mean, we try to do all the surprises into the gameplay. There is not so much Easter egg stuff. More things like go and try. I think that's the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we ourselves, we were surprised what players did with the demo. So one example, you see that little forest in front of the town, and there is this door with the 10-star logo. So you need 10 stars to go through. But one player managed to jump onto the trees because he turned all the trees to iron or to stone. And he could get on top of the forest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and from there he was able to jump over over the door. And of course, because you want your game to run at high frame rates, he could jump over the door, but there was nothing because it only gets switched on, and yeah, that we fixed it now. So unfortunately, you guys listening to me now, you cannot do it again, but that's what people did. And many situations where we thought, we planned it completely different, but this is a way to solve it. So that was really nice for us to see, because it showed us that you can use the swap in the way you want, and that's a good thing.
I imagine because of the nature of the swap mechanic that when doing testing and everything for the game, that you probably ran into a lot of surprises.
Yeah, it were surprises, but it was always a tension between how far do we want the swap to go? How much freedom can we allow before breaking the game or before breaking the challenges? Like, people always ask, why can I not transform everything to everything? The reason is it would crush the world, it would delete all the challenges, it would look ugly. So we always had to think of the swap of something in between an old point-and-click adventure. Some things work, but then expand it in the 3D realm and then add more solutions to it. So it is not a sandbox game. That's for sure.
There's a lot that you can do in this game. So in addition to lots of exploration and puzzle solving and collecting and platforming and mini games, there's so much. Was there anything that didn't make it into the game?
A lot. I mean, you are producing so much stuff, and we didn't have a storyline for a very long time, because I always said, let's start with the really good things and then we make sure we connect them. But first of all, I want to have a variety for the swap, because of course we want the swap to be used in many occasions. And so we were looking for how can we make use of the swap. And then afterwards we said, now let's put it into a storyline. And some things in the storyline just didn't fit in anymore. So those were out. And then, some smaller levels, unfortunately, didn't make it. Like you had one where you are riding on a little railroad. I don't know the exact word, but mining people have little wagons on wheels. And it was kind of one of those little mining wagons. You had to copy and paste arrows to adjust how the tracks would run to the left or to the right, and this unfortunately didn't make it, but it was a nice little game as well.
One of my favorites, or at least one of the things that stood out for sure to me, was the hayball competition, which was doing all the tricks and everything on the half pipe. That was something that I didn't expect to encounter it and had so much fun with it.
Yeah, we just thought, hey, this is a rad thing to have, and let's just have as much as cool stuff in it as possible. And so we already thought it would be cool if Ruffy would be able to drive something, and then him riding on hay balls, because this will be your driving vehicle in the game. You can get a hay ball, and you are even competing in hay ball races against other bears. They have tuned up bales, and unfortunately you only have a regular bale, and you don't even own one. You have to steal it, and story goes on, and you have to manipulate the racing track and all that stuff. And that was already cool to ride on skate on a straw bale. And then we said, hey, while riding, let's make him jump, let's make him do tricks. Hey, we can do even a half pipe contest, him riding on his hay ball. And that's how we ended up with skateboard stuff.
Skateboarding games and things like that, was that something that you were drawn to?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Tony Hawk 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Not sure if I played the third edition, but yeah, of course, yeah, all the time. I mean, that was the heyday of the skateboarding, when it finally looked great and wasn't a simulation, but an arcade game.
So speaking of that and influences, inspiration into your game, are there any like personal or other inspirations or stuff that are represented in the game, whether it's like, I don't know, nods to certain characters or people in your life?
A lot. I mean, that's what I said in the beginning. You grab what you have. Anytime I have free time, I do anything, and I see something that is interesting, then I automatically reflect if it would be a cool thing to have in the game. So, I mean, the most obvious thing is my son is called Raphael, but we only call him Ruffy. So, but this.
Oh, okay.
This was a coincidence. I mean, Ruffy is written completely different than Raphael. But still, it sounds like Ruffy. And then my son came up to me, hey, it's so nice that you put me as your main character. And then my second son heard of that and said, what, Ruffy is in the game and I'm not? That's why we have a second little bear called Henry. That's my second son.
Henry's the one with the, is he the one with the paintbrush?
Exactly, yes.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, you run into him in the demo right by the shrine.
Exactly.
I believe.
And in the game, there are way more of that shrines, and they are more complicated. I mean, this is a very easy shrine, because the thing is, you have to replicate this wall drawings in the pattern of the shrine, right? And some patterns are that you have to be careful which you are overwriting. Because if you overwrite some of those lines, then you don't have them once you need them. So the shrines, they look very simple, but they are not simple. And yeah, you have to be very clever. And Henry, he is very clever. So I thought this is a good match. If he's doing this archaeological expedition, you have to find all shrines, and you have to lift all the treasures below the shrines by being clever. So that's a good match with Henry.
That's very cool. Is there, like, specifically with the shrines, with some of the other things, because you are sort of using your spot mechanic to change the nature of certain aspects within the game world? I know that when you go through like a door and come back out, it sort of like resets things in the environment. When it comes to, like, let's say the shrines, if you change something around, but you've made a mistake, does that soft lock you in any sense, or does that reset?
Yeah, that is all resetting. So we do have reset over time. Then you have reset by mistake. And then you have reset by distance. So, and you even have a little symbol at the lower left corner. It's like a circle, and it tells you now the sea isn't frozen for more than 3 seconds now, and then once the circle is completed, the ocean changes back to water again. And so we do have a lot of resets.
I did encounter that in the demo, and one of the little worlds that you go through, I want to say it was like the 3-star door. Yeah, when you change the ocean, it does change back after like so many seconds. So
yeah,
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And it's also in this tiles on the wall with the numbers, the tile riddles. if you do something wrong, then this Raven figure, he will reset it. Basically, everything has a reset if it's crucial for not being soft locked.
As someone, and this is going to tie back into our earlier conversation when you were specifically referencing Ocarina of Time, as someone that remembers getting soft locked in that water dungeon and having to start over because I couldn't figure my way out of there, I very much appreciate that you've thought like everything through for that.
Hey, hopefully. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, we try to think everything through, and Water Temple, by the way, is a pain. It can be a pain. So Water Temple, oh man, raising the water up and down and then climbing up and down with water, without water. Oh.
I feel like it's sort of become a bit of a meme at this point with like any water temple in a Zelda game is always kind of like a groan.
Yeah, that's really the most difficult dungeon in Zelda.
Without getting too spoilery, do you have a favorite moment in the game so far?
There are really a couple of it. I mean, on your journey, you will have a really deep and long story, and you are traveling to faraway regions, and sometimes you have to win a race, sometimes you have to bring back peace, sometimes you have to accomplish something else. And in each of those faraway lands, when you bring the solution, then this is always very nice, because you always are being confronted with problems of the people there, and then you are the guy that brings it back, and you are Ruffy. You are a funny guy. And if a funny guy brings some sort of a solution for people that are kind of suffering, in terms of the storyline, I cannot spoil the end, but at the end there is one big twist, and I thought maybe this twist is too hard. So after this twist, there's even another smaller twist that makes you really feel good again about everything, but I cannot go into details here.
I love the idea of that. You get a twist before the twist.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
As you were developing the game, what came as the biggest surprise to you from a development standpoint?
How long it took. And but I mean, it's our own fault. We didn't just stop and say, that's enough, now start polishing, but we kept on adding ideas. And I'm happy we did so, because, one of the last things that came into the game are these wall riddles where you can jump into the wall. And I think that's funny, and that's good, and it's a good match for a 2D sprite character that he really is flat at one point.
I really enjoyed the wall puzzle. Like, we got to do the one in the demo. It did take me like a split second to figure out too how to pull it off. Like, I don't really want to spoil it for anyone listening, but you need to do something very, very specific to take care of the tree that's in there sort of blocking you. My head kind of started going down a few of these little paths of like, okay, so I think I know what I need to do. I'm just not sure how to do it. I had that aha moment that came in sort of waves of, this sounds crazy, but maybe would this work? And then going all the way, into the little forest sort of conclave to where the lava is.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, I think that my crazy idea might work. And then, going from there. So it was such a satisfying payoff for that. And one of the things that I find the most charming about this game is the idea that you can kind of do such outlandish, crazy things with this swap mechanic, but the game allows you to do that, and that honestly works. That's how you can solve these puzzles. And it just gives you such a unique and just sense of satisfaction and joy when it works out.
Yeah, this was really the idea behind getting many use cases for the swap, and then even try to connect them. And the wall puzzle is for sure the most difficult puzzle in the demo. But we wanted to show, hey, sometimes you do need an agenda, and then use the swap, go step by step, and in the end, you will have everything you need by swapping stuff. So many people ask how do I get in the wall and how to solve the wall and stuff. So we put a lot of characters next to the wall, and they kind of give you hints. But still, you have to read it. You have to make the combination. And so when I'm watching the streams of Ruffy and the Riverside demo, I often see people run around and they do not talk to the characters. And then it's really hard if you not talk to the characters.
Yeah, I wouldn't have come up with the plan that I did come up with, I think, unless I had talked to the little bird and then the that big fish guy that's hanging out off to the side. I think that was actually where I finally came up with the idea. So I was like, okay, I think this is what I need to do. It feels like a stretch, but maybe this will work. And that is exactly what I needed to do. And yeah, the payoff was great.
I think it's a really good sign that even those swapping puzzles where you have only one solution are fun. Because this was our biggest concern, that people would think, hey, this is completely sandbox. I can do anything. But sometimes you have to do very specific things, but in a certain order. And I think for myself, at least that's my hope, that it is rewarding if you have the goal and you know, hey, there are maybe 4 or 5 steps. Let's see if I really go through all those steps. And when it then turns out to be the correct order, I hope that this is entertaining.
I think you nailed it, honestly. Yeah. And, and obviously that's my, own humble opinion, but I really think that the puzzle solving that is kind of very much in connection with the idea of exploration, and not exploration just in the sense of exploring the world, but exploring different ways and different ideas to try to solve these puzzles using that swap mechanic. I think you married those concepts in a very, very good and very thought-provoking and unique way that does create this extreme joy, this little dopamine hit every time it comes off. So in my experience, each time it was a lot of fun.
That's great to hear, Chris. So that's really nice you say so.
One of the things that I know was hinted at towards the end of the demo, but you don't fully encounter, I believe, is the idea of the dreamstones. Is that something that you can speak to?
Yeah, of course. I mean, in the game, there are quite a number of collectibles. One of them are the so-called dreamstones. And I mean, it's safe to say that you need it for a quest, but I can already say that you will be able to do something with those dreamstones that will really change the total look of the game. So I'm not sure if I can. I mean, why shouldn't I say it here? You will be able to draw your own textures, and then you can use those in the game. Like you get a dreamstone for, let's say, water, and then you can draw your own water, and then you can set a check mark and say, hey, use my water instead of the original water, and then you will have your own water.
That is so interesting. I think I remember in the start menu, there is like a little
a drawing
space. Yeah, so like a little easel and stuff. So you were literally creating the texture?
Yes, you have a drawing board, yes, and you can do some pixel art there. You have, I think, 3 resolution from very pixel style up to, I think, 1,000 pixels. And you can draw like the guys did in Miiverse. So Miiverse inspired me kind of to this pixel style drawing mode, and then you can draw your own pixel textures.
That's so interesting how it's sort of all kind of connected in that way, sort of come full circle from the idea of you starting with all these like images and creations in Miiverse, like you were talking about towards the beginning of our discussion. Now that you've built your game, you've kind of come full circle and created a way for players to make their own art within your game, just like you did back then.
Yeah, and totally true, Chris. I don't know if this is boring or not, but there is a saying in fine arts, like the hand drawing is the shortest connection between an idea and reality. And I thought this is especially true for Ruffy. I mean, you have an idea, you have all those hand drawings around you, and you can grab one texture or a hand drawing, throw it somewhere else just because you have the idea, and then it turns the new reality. And yeah, the icing on the cake, I know this is only for some, this drawing mode, but to throw your own textures is even better. Maybe some enjoy it. I don't think many will, or everybody will say, no, yeah, I will draw my own texture. So you can still complete the quest as a sheer collectible, but you have the possibility to draw your own.
During your time, these past 7 years that you've been developing the game, kind of seeing the evolution from what was originally kind of a walking sim of walking along this river to now we've got this adorable bear character going on this grand adventure. What did you learn about yourself during this time?
If you want an honest answer, then how much stress I can take. But yeah, that's a learning. So I mean, it was a 7-year learning curve. We still keep learning. So this is not your usual 9-to-5 job where you go and then you do the stuff that you can, because there's always a problem. There's always unsolved questions, and running a company adds up to it. But alone, the game development, this is just learning every day, and surprised I could do it.
Well, you did a fantastic job.
Thank you, Chris. I mean, I'm happy how the game turned out. If you had asked me at the beginning, or even 2 years ago, then I would never had guessed that it would turn out like it is. But on the other hand, as much stress as it is, I feel a bit sorry that this is over now, because working on a game, you have always this open space of possibilities in front of you, and then someday you have to finish it, and then it is what it is. And developing it's always open. You always can do something more, something better.
Well, with that in mind, do you have any plans at this time beyond this first game, whether that's a sequel to Ruffy or if it's something else?
Probably yes, because we have so much stuff now that we have learned. So many ideas left that we want to do. And of course, we can build up on so much. I mean, it's thousands of textures. And of course, a sequel will have new textures, new riddles, new characters and stuff, a new storyline. But you can also build up on it. Even if we take the same, if we wanted to be just the same size, it wouldn't take us 7 years, because maybe half of it. So yeah, I do not want to start from scratch again. So if we do another game, it will be Ruffy 2.
Sure.
Never again starting at zero.
So last question I'm going to ask you, and this is for everyone listening. Do you have any advice that you would give to any other indie developers based on everything that you've learned over the past 7 years?
Yeah, I wish I could give a very good tip that applies to everyone, but I can just rely on what I learned. I'm really happy that I made a product that I think I will be content with in 5 years and in 10 years. So look, you have always to project, will I be looking back at it and be happy with it? So I think this is very important, because you never know if the audience will like it. You never know if it will get in money or not. But if you make sure that you yourself can look back at it with a good feeling, I think, to me, this is very important. How to look back on the stuff I do. That's not a design hint, not a good tip for how to design, but maybe how to deal with such a job.
No, I think that is equally important. You've got to be able to manage your mindset, take care of yourself during all of that. I think that's just as equally important especially like in an age where burnout, I feel, is so easy to come by with how on the go, how quick everything moves these days.
That's the same in art. You can make a really good picture and nobody will buy it, but you still have this picture that you like. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for joining me and answering all my questions. It was so much fun to have you on here and get to pick your brain about Ruffy and the Riverside.
Hey, Chris, thanks to you that you had me here and that I could share some anecdotes and some thoughts on our game. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
So everyone, the demo is available right now. So go and check that out, and it will be releasing sometime this year on PC and console. And I'm very, very excited. This has been one of the best demos I have played in a very, very long time. And it is really just bringing me back to all the games I loved from childhood. In the feel and the vibe, the gameplay is all so solid, so innovative, and just so new and refreshing. Wishlist it. This thing is coming, and it is fantastic.
Get ready!
All right, we are back. And again, just a huge thank you to Patrick from Zockrates Laboratories for doing that interview with me. We had a really great time. It was a really great conversation, and just really, really appreciative that he gave us the time of day to do this for our podcast. So with all of that said, I want to ask you specifically, Joseph, because to me, this game evokes so much about this era of games that I love so much. I talked about it a little bit in the interview, and it's games like, and you mentioned it earlier too, like games like Banjo-Kazooie, also Paper Mario, Mario 64, stuff like that, it almost feels like this is such an amalgamation of all of the things that made those games great from that era, somehow thrown into one game, but still completely unique in its own way with this completely new, innovative style. I just want to know, like, how do you feel about this game overall?
Yeah, I think you put it really well by calling it an amalgamation of a lot of the things that we loved from our childhood mainly, but also like just the style of the 3D platformer that really Mario 64 kind of started the path of. And it would have been one thing if this game had just been, just sort of that with a different skin on, or like a Banjo-Kazooie, like with like just different characters or whatever, unique enough story-wise, but like still the same kind of mechanics. But it was a whole nother thing to add this completely unique mechanic to it and still invoke the feeling of those games. I think that's what's really going to make this stand out, as opposed to something else that I would have appreciated, but also probably would have, looked past because like, well, I've done it before. But this I have not done before. And so I'm excited to see how that feels, especially in the full game of going through, solving these puzzles in these really unique ways. And just experiencing this world that is real. I was, even as I was just playing the demo of it, appreciating how vibrant it was and just how unique it felt. And even the look of the characters, having that sticker-esque quality to them is really nice. That's why when I say Paper Mario, that's what I mean, is like that kind of visual feel to it is definitely that. And overall, I'm very excited to try this out, like when it comes out. You said, I know there's not an exact release date, but end of Q1, Q2 at some point?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be somewhere around then.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely looking forward to it. How are you feeling about it overall?
Oh man, I'm so excited for it. This is probably like the most like hyped I've been for a game for a while, because like it gave me a sense of nostalgia I haven't felt for a very long time. Like I get some, I get nostalgia once in a while, and we've talked about that on the show before too. But it's just like, this was almost like just a direct line to 10, 11-year-old Chris and that time frame of like that excitement around when like the N64 came out and everything, and just how new and how energetic and how fun everything felt. That's what this game feels like. It feels super fun and new and energetic, and it just has so much charm. So I'm very, very excited for this. It's going to release not only on Steam, but it's going to have a console release too for the majority of major consoles. So I'm really, really excited, not only to play this, but I'm really excited for Patrick and his team to see, how this takes off and to see how, what they do next. He talked a little bit about in the interview. I asked him, like, does he have plans, after this? And he said, he probably would like to do a sequel as well. He's got a ton of ideas, and there was a lot of things that didn't make it into this game. So, after, just even playing this demo and after talking with him, I'm like, I'm already ready for that sequel. Like, please start working on that, Patrick, please.
I think the reception of this is going to be very positive. I cannot see any reason why it wouldn't be. And even like, especially with myself coming from, I don't really play a lot of games that aren't labeled a certain way at this point, only because like I don't have the time to really, because a lot of the games that I play are, so they have so much to them that they end up lasting, many, many hours, and there's so much repetition to them. So if it's not a roguelike, if it's not a Souls-like, if it's not an RPG of some sort in the sense that it's like a tactical or whatever, then a lot of times I just won't play it because I won't have the time to. But this is one where it's completely different from what I am normally playing, and there is that nostalgic feel to it that I wouldn't have even knew how I like felt about it without trying the demo out. But once I did, like, it came back so hard. And it made me feel like kind of clever in ways when I would solve something a certain way that I really haven't gotten the feeling of in a while, because I don't play a lot of puzzle games even. So it's like, okay, this is cool. Like, this would be one that also I think kids would love. And also maybe it'll make them a little bit smarter in the process. So, hey, there you go.
Yes, I absolutely was thinking that too, that it feels very much in line with the type of game that Nintendo likes to put out, which is like a mascot game with a very unique and innovative twist that hasn't been done before, and has a charm and interesting style to it, along with content that is suitable for entire families. Like, adults would have a good time playing it, and kids would have a good time playing it. So this 100% is in line with all of those values. And because of that too, like, I can say right now, like, now having a kid of my own and having those thoughts in my head of like, what games will I start introducing her to as she starts getting older? Like, I could see this one being, a game that in a few years, obviously I'm going to start on some of the classics, like, here's some cool Mario games and stuff, but like, this will be up there. It'll be like, this is a game I think we could play together and she would have a really fun time. So it means a lot to me that, there are indie developers making games like this. So I think this is fantastic. I can't wait for the full release.
Yeah. In our generation, you were either a Sonic kid or a Mario kid. Maybe she's going to be a Ruffy kid.
She's going to be a Ruffy kid. Exactly. There is going to be some merch. I know there's going to be a Ruffy plushie at some point.
Perfect.
So,
well, I know what she's getting next Christmas from me.
She's going to have to get a Ruffy plushie. That's right. We need a sloth plushie. When are we going to get our nerd sloth plushie?
I thought we had some idea. Yeah, we just never did it. All right. Yeah, eventually.
Yeah, we haven't done it.
We'll make it happen.
Someday, we'll make it happen. Speaking of making things happen, I would love it if you would make this happen. And by this, I mean share this episode with someone who loves indie games.
That was a stretch. You got there?
Yeah, I pulled it together. As always, you can catch me playing some of the games that we talked about on the show. It was one game. It's Ruffy in the Riverside. I have a Let's Play up of it on our YouTube. Go check that out. Man, I can't talk. YouTube.com/NerdSloth. You can also catch hundreds of hours of bonus content for $1 a month by subscribing at the NerdSloth Treehouse at Patreon.com/NerdSloth, where we also have an exclusive podcast there called the NerdSloth Podcast for those at the $5 tier, along with other exclusives only for those members. And at nerdsloth.com, you can find a link to our Discord server, and you can join our subreddit for Indie Game Arcade and help me post more reviews of indie games so more folks can find games that suit their playstyle.
Game over.
But that is game over for us. My name's Chris.
I'm Joseph.
And we'll continue on the next episode.
Continue.
Indie Game Arcade is recorded and produced by Sloth Creative. If you're looking for more gaming content, head over to youtube.com/nerdsloth. For additional podcasts, go to nerdsloth.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are multiple tiers available at patreon.com/nerdsloth, with hundreds of hours of bonus content from everything we do at Sloth Creative, including bonus gameplay videos of the games we talk about on the show. The theme music for the show is Retro Game Tapes by Audio Line. If you'd like to get in touch with us, or if you're an indie game developer and would like us to consider reviewing your game, send us an email to podcasts@nerdsloth.com with the subject line Indie Game Arcade.